Listener's note. Today's podcast deals with issues of addiction and suicidal ideation. If you or someone you know is having any of these issues, please reach out to 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or you may text them at 988. Thank you. Hello, this is Leslie Dilbeck, and we want to welcome you to White Knuckling Through Life. We appreciate you listening to our podcast. We're very excited to have some special guests today. My co-host, Diane Cohen, is on the other side of the camera out of, well, can I say where you're at?
Yeah, I'm outside of Seattle.
Yeah, what's your weather today?
Oh my God, it's amazing. There are no better summers than Washington summers.
Well,
having lived in Sacramento for 40 years, our guests today, Dawn and Don, are from Sacramento. In fact, that's where I met Dawn. So Dawn and Don, what is the weather like there?
Hot.
I love it though.
Hot.
It's hot.
So we're recording this on July 20th, 2023. I'm in San Diego and it's so hot. It was 90 degrees today, but we don't have air conditioning. Not a lot of people have air conditioning.
Yeah, that's right.
It's literally like 2 weeks out of the year that seem to be really bothersome. So we want to thank you guys for joining us. Diane, tell us about our guests today.
Okay, well, we have Dawn and Don Nejas, and little backstory. Don Nejas, the gentleman, he and I went to high school together, and we hung out a little in high school. He actually helped me. He lent me a camera so that I can go on the football field, and I got myself my homecoming date. Remember that, Don?
Yeah, here's the camera right here.
That was not the camera. John's a great photographer and he has really great equipment. So he lent it to me so I can get on the field and scope out all the guys and pick out my, who I wanted to go to the dance with. And
we get me a
fast
date. That
friends.
was the hard part.
What's that?
You never got me a date.
Well, look, you ended up with your beautiful wife.
That's true.
So I guess it doesn't matter, right?
True.
So Don and I went to high school together and stayed in contact more or less, but I had a family, he had a family, and then somewhere, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, we just really got more connected with actually more like 20 years ago, got reconnected with one another. And he has a great story. He and his wife have an amazing story. I don't know how they lived through it. I marvel at their strength and what they were able to do. So maybe Dawn, you can tell us a little bit about your family and, Josh. You could tell us a little bit about Josh.
Okay. So we have 4 children, adult children. Josh was the oldest, and then we have 3 daughters. Josh, he struggled a lot early in life with anxiety. Well, no, anxiety was really in his adult life, but he had depression, and they would have me take him in and get him tested, and they went back and forth. Is it ADD? Is it depression? And so he struggled off and on through his childhood. And then when he became a teenager, when all teenagers are out going to parties and testing alcohol and stuff, he did, and he liked the way it made him feel less anxiety. He felt funny. He felt like he could talk to girls, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But he really, kids aren't really thinking about what runs in the family. And unfortunately, alcoholism runs on both sides of his dad's family and my family. And he just happened to be the one who had the gene. And he struggled with alcohol from probably the time he was, maybe 17, 16.
Yeah.
Didn't really come out until he was about 21 that he had a problem. And then during his alcoholism, like off and on, he was homeless during that because he would drink so much that he would start losing, he wouldn't take care of himself. He wouldn't be able to keep jobs, things like that. So he ended up on the street off and on for about 10 years, but not for 10 years total. And then he had been through programs, he got sober, he went off and on with that, but he couldn't kick the drinking. And in 2016, he was only 32, he passed away from it, from multi-system organ failure from the use of alcohol. So, yeah.
And I'm so sorry about that. I mean, I know that you guys went through so much to help them and to put them through programs. And, one of the things I remember a story that Don shared with me, that for his birthday, you guys went and rented him a hotel room so that he could be, in a room, in a bed, take a shower. And, the way that they treated him was just unbelievably disrespectful. And I want to get that word out there, because homeless people deserve the same courtesies as the rest of us. Well, we don't know why they're there. And that is part of our podcast. I just want people to remember, when they see somebody, this is a person, this is somebody's child, brother, maybe mother, father, it could be anybody, but when we see them, let's remember them. So
that's ultimately our message. And on the last day that I spoke to him before he went to the hospital that night, he called me and he told me he wasn't feeling well. And I was trying to tell him to go to the ER, and he said, I'm not going. They treat you like crap if you're an alcoholic, and I'm not going. And I said, well, maybe they'll find something and admit you and you can get treatment. He said, I'm not going. And that night I got the call that he came in throwing up blood, which he'd never done before. And they said he was talking fine. They were having a conversation, and all of a sudden his blood pressure just started dropping. And then the next 5 days was a horror story. So that is our message to it. Our message is twofold, actually. It is to give the homeless and people who on the street, addicts, people who struggle, right? Our message is to give them hope and let them see that they're seen and heard and they're cared about. But it's also for our society, for our culture, for our city, to send the message that these are people, these are, like you said, somebody's son or daughter. They belong to somebody. And now, everyone has a different story, and it doesn't really matter what the story is. It doesn't matter if it was because they were hard on their luck or if they were an addict. It just doesn't really matter.
Right. It doesn't. Now, you said that this is our story and our message. So this is one of the things I find and marvel at, that you and Dawn were able to really dig deep during your time of sorrow, and you started a foundation and a charity in your son's honor. So Dawn, why don't you tell us a little bit about Josh's heart, how it became to be, and then we share some more stories about Josh. I want to share with everybody the amazing work that you're going to be doing on the 12th of August.
Sure. So Josh passed away, as Dawn said, August 12th, 2016 at 5 p.m. And I walked out into the lobby after holding his hand as he went home. And I went up to our pastor and was giving him a hug. And I afterwards, he goes, we need to start a nonprofit in Josh's memory. We need to keep the legacy alive. And the legacy is that when Josh was on the streets, he took care of everyone that was his street family. If he had food, whatever, money, goods, whatever, he always shared it with everyone. And he took care of the people that are around him. And consequently, or not consequently, I'm trying to think of the word, but he actually had people staying at his apartment while he was in the hospital. So I mean, that was what he did. Homeless people. And so he always took care of people. That was his thing. And so that was what we wanted to do, was continue that legacy. So within a half an hour of his passing, Josh's Heart was born. We actually had the name, and we tried to run it through our church and found out later we could not. So we contacted this amazing, incredible, handsome, I can't go on, I could go on forever, attorney. And he said, you know what, We have a great attorney that knows nonprofit on our firm. You pay the fees and we'll take care of the attorney fees. And I don't know if you know or not, that was your husband. Anyway, so we
Not
started
Leslie,
that.
Diane's.
Yeah, husband. So from there, we started doing blessing backpacks, which are filled with grooming essentials, snacks, water, seasonal items, and then each one has a note in it that says "You matter," and it's a handwritten note of inspiration or encouragement from someone in the community. And we also have a little thing called the Pocket Testimonial, which is the Book of John, and it has a 1-800 number for prayer requests. And so when we go out, we sit down and talk with the people that we're handing out the backpacks, hear their story, pray with them if they want. And our idea is to connect. It's not to just hand them something and walk away. We want to get to know them, and know their story. And during the winter, it was all Dawn's idea. We started doing jackets. And so we do this, Dawn, by the way.
It's for Christmas.
Yeah, for Christmas. So we put brand new jackets, tags, all the things on them inside a big Christmas bag, put the wrapping on top of it and get a stocking. We take them out and hand them out as Christmas presents. And again, a handwritten Christmas card in there. And we sit down again and just talk with them. And we did that a couple years back. We had on one of our runs, we had a lady who was on the streets with her boyfriend. And as soon as I walked up to her, she just started bawling, just started crying. And her thing was that no one's ever gone up to her and talked to her and looked her in the eye. And so she wrote us probably about 2 days later and said that she got in contact with her daughter and is in the process of making amends. She's looking for a place to live and she got rid of the boyfriend. So it's just, it's not that everyone that we talk to, it's a miraculous thing, but I mean, figure that, if it just gives someone a little bit of inspiration to move forward, that someone cares enough to talk to them and just give them some kind of, hope.
So twice a year we do the backpacks and sometimes more, but we definitely do summer and winter. We've also helped other organizations because we really have a heart for addiction. And so we've helped, Josh's Heart has helped sponsor 3 men now.
3 men, yeah.
Go through the Salvation Army's like construction program and school programs where it costs money. And so they need people to sponsor them. And so we were able to do that. We got to go to the graduation. That one of them contacted us on Facebook, saw that we were out packing backpacks and showed up and told his story. And so it's not common for us to get an email or a Facebook message or someone to call and say, hey, I want to come. It's so, when we get those, that's really exciting,
And we don't expect it because,
Right.
a lot of people don't have the means to do it
but to hear from them is really always just special. So we try to do other things other than the backpacks, but we're small and we're growing. And
we're us.
yeah. So
This is Josh's Heart right here and our volunteers.
yeah. So those are the things that we've been doing since 2016. We've also helped people will call us and say, hey, we know this person, they're struggling, they're on the street tonight, can you help them? And we'll do little things like that with Josh's Heart, but our go-to are the blessing backpacks, and those are constant. And
about
Christmas,
250 a year.
At least. Christmas is jackets, brand new jackets,
And stockings.
and they're in presents. They're in bags with lots of tissue, so they feel special. Like it's not just like, oh, here's a coat, So that's what we're about. We would love to get more involved in the addiction side, but that's a little bit more difficult because we're not medical, we're not doctors, I would love to see some addiction centers come up with medical treatment for detox, because my son didn't have that. And when he went to the county detox, he had his first and only seizure because alcohol is the only drug you can't just stop cold turkey, and a lot of people don't know that. And when you do, if you're in bad shape, you can have a seizure, you can die. And he had a 1.5-minute seizure the year before he died and was in the hospital almost 3 weeks. And it was horrible. And we had so much trouble finding any kind of treatment where he could get medically detoxed. And so that was always a thing for me. I would love to get Josh's heart going that way too.
That was also the time you found out that he really loves caramel macchiatos, frappuccinos, close enough.
So I'd like to refer our audience to a podcast that we did a couple months ago, and there was a Dr. Amanda, and she has a program for alcoholism, and they do help people to withdraw safely in their program. So if you know somebody looking to detox, please look for that podcast. It is, I got some really great information, but Dawn, I understand because my son was also an alcoholic, and, you know, he didn't have medications and, you know, that type of treatment. And it would be lovely to see new programs for people to be able to do that. But I guess medicine research is just not there yet, but hopefully Dr. Amanda's program will become very well received and duplicated so everybody has access.
Yeah, it's difficult because you have to have really good insurance. And even then, I think the copays are really high to get medical treatment for detoxing. And so.
Yeah, and when you're at that level, you probably aren't able to, how many people have a job that has really good insurance when you're at that level of your addiction that you need to be detoxed in that way? So that's a very big challenge. And I know that, you know, as a parent, like you would do anything you could do to save your child, but like, what do you do when you just don't even, I mean, the resources are limited in some cases for people. I mean, you could try and be on the phone for hours with the county, but if they don't even offer that, you know, piece of it, then that's really difficult and challenging. And so I do see your point to that, because when San Diego, as I see in Portland, Oregon, and I see in Sacramento, a lot of different places, you know, a lot of folks are on the streets because they have just burned their bridges.
Yes.
And then they have shame. And when you were talking about being able to look the person in the eye and them feeling that and seeing like that person that you touched that got in contact with their daughter, maybe that one interaction broke through some of that shame that woman felt like empowered to go ahead and reach out to family. Because I'm sure they're like, Diane, when we were talking to our kids on this podcast, that, you know, there was that embarrassment and shame, you know, and it's when they're consistently treated like they should be ashamed of themselves or that they're not even human, how can they break through to even being able to reconnect? So
my son actually said that to me one time when he was sober. He had gone through a program, he was, you know, sober, he was doing well, and he was with me, you know, and he said, Mom, I can't look people in the eye I can't do it from my time on the street. Is, you know, it's that shame.
Yeah.
Can you share with everybody how you guys were able to gather enough strength? Because I imagine it's hard to breathe the moment you get that news, and you know, it doesn't dissipate ever, but you need to move forward. And I know that you guys have a great faith, and maybe you can share your story about that and how you were able to get to the point that you could really start the foundation and the charity in your son's name. Because, you know, half hour after he dies, you have the name, you know what's going to happen, but it doesn't just happen, right? You have to build up to get to the point you can actually do something with it.
Yeah, well, I wasn't well, and I didn't know they had that conversation, so I wasn't in on that. And I do remember Josh passed away in August. In October, we were in the attorney's office getting papers done, and we had his, you know, article with him, and I was crying even in the attorney's office still. So I still wasn't well, or if you could say ready to do anything. I think I don't really know how to answer that. I think we're still walking, you know, you just kind of the grief doesn't go away, and you just learn to walk with it differently and carry it differently. I still, there was probably the beginning that year, I felt a little overwhelmed. Like am I even having a second to grieve? Because we jumped right into Josh's heart. So, but I would say I went to some therapy, and I just kind of worked my way through it and carried on, because it was for him, too. So I guess, and then Dawn, probably because Dawn carries a lot of it, so.
Well,
Done.
just to tag on that, you mentioned, of our faith, we both are Christians, and it is by the grace of God that we're able to be able to do this every step of the way, to be able to move forward and work through our grief, more so with her. I mean, she's fought for Josh from the day she conceived him. So
I did.
so her tie, the mother's bond is always the strongest, right? As far as going through everything, getting to the point where we are now, it's truly the grace of God and the support of our family and our church
Well, we
and
really,
friends.
we really believe that God set this whole thing in motion, just the way it came about, the way we got such support without even trying. Sac State got involved, and I don't think we really tried. They just, everything just kind of fell in place, and Dave helped us, and Susan, and people reached out and they wanted to do stories on us. And I mean, it was definitely, and we didn't do anything to get that. So we really believe that God ordained this whole idea. And that's another way I think we kind of keep going, because it's really, we try to remember it's not us, it's not ours, it's his. And
We've actually had people through helping us help define the meaning of our organization, our nonprofit, as our ministry. And I never ever thought about it as that, and it truly has become one. It's not a I would say a Bible thumping ministry, but I mean,
it's the
do
hands
go
and
out.
feet of Jesus
It
ministry.
is.
It's the hands and feet.
And it's one of those ones that one scripture about entertaining angels. I think I can never remember it, but it's one that's strong with us, because it's true. We just don't know. We don't know if we're, who it is that we're going to be coming up to, and how that may help. So just like that one lady that we reached out to, and we had another person. So one of the things we do when we go out with our volunteers, we do a little huddle beforehand and a prayer. And then afterwards we come back and we do a huddle again, and we ask, does anyone want to share anything? And so people will share their stories, who they spoke with, and kind of their little conversation. And one lady said that one guy was so grateful that she looked him in the eyes, because he's been on the streets for years and no one looks him in the eye. And so that was a huge thing. And so those are the stories that we bring on to people.
I think the stories keep us going too.
Right. But it's one of those things that's like when we're out there getting our volunteers together, look them in the eye, talk to them, hear their story. Don't talk at them, let them listen, you sit down and listen to them. So
yeah, and grief is a strange thing, is even when you're doing this, because I do believe grief is grief, right? But I think I have a lot of PTSD from the time he was in the hospital, just memories of it, pieces of it. I still struggle with that, and I've talked about it a little bit with counselors and stuff. But grief I don't know, it just kind of changes and ebbs and flows every single day. It's different. Like one day I might be thinking of those things and not, I could not talk without crying, and the other day I could talk like I'm right now. It just, I don't know.
I think it's the process, and that's what I'm glad you went there with that, because just thinking, as I'm a mom, and I like, my worst fear is losing one of my kids, like that's one of my worst fears. And my worst fear happened to you, and it's like your response is so perfect. I mean, it depends on the day. It could be you see something that reminds you of him, or it could, I don't know how the spirit I'm a Christian too, but sometimes I feel like there can be a nudge sometimes from somebody, like whether it be Jesus, or it could be the one that's passed, or is that just a reminder? Is it God just saying, I got you, like I'm caring for this person for you.
Oh, yeah.
So
If I did not know that my son had accepted Christ in his life, and we even had our pastor do it with him again at the hospital before he wasn't, before he was not coherent anymore. If I did not know where he was, I really don't think I would be standing.
yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think too, like, one of two things I think can happen if you're a person of faith. Like something like this can, like, you cling to your faith, and then other people, like in my instance with my daughter's situation, I basically stepped away from my faith because I couldn't see I just couldn't see I just couldn't see it. Something that I had devoted my life to, and I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't seeing it. I didn't understand. I couldn't, and it's slowly being reconciled within my heart, but seeing you being able to, cling to your community and them standing beside you and helping you through this is definitely a solution, for, those that are struggling with whatever it may be. We've had a few people come on this podcast that have talked about their faith being a huge piece of their healing, and maybe not 100% healing, but like being able to put one step and foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And that's a very inspiring thing. I want to thank you for sharing that. That's
You're
important.
welcome.
Well, two things I wanted to touch on. One of them was about you stepping away from your faith. Our oldest daughter was angry with God because of Josh. And so she has stepped away for a while now. She's back in her faith and digging deep, and so is our youngest daughter. But I also wanted to mention too, I think what helped you a little bit when we were doing our backpack deliveries is we went and saw people that knew Josh.
Yeah.
And so she was able to cry and grieve with them, but also hear stories. And so I think it was up to about 2 years ago, we would run into someone that knew Josh, or knuckleheads or knuckles.
Well, Josh, so I was by his side even when he was homeless. It broke my heart that I couldn't have him here. It killed me. I just wanted to fix him. I wanted to fix it. I was that mom. And I really don't apologize for that, because you hear a lot of people when you have a child or a husband or wife that are addicted, right? You hear, don't be the enabler. You got to cut them off. They're not going to do it if you keep fixing things for them, all these things, right? And so I was constantly trying, like, hard on myself, like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, or oh, should I do this? And I was constantly in that state, but I still, would do what I could and be right there for him. And then I had a friend who is a therapist say to me, and I'll never forget it, I share this with everybody.
So do I.
Because I wish I knew this when I was going through this with Josh, but she said to me that she was counseling a couple, and the topic was whatever. And she said, just because it says it in a book doesn't make it real. Like, just because you read a book on tough love, doesn't make it the only thing, right? Doesn't make it true. And she goes, you got to do what you can live with. That's everybody. You got to do what you can live with. And immediately I'm like, well, I could live, now he's gone, and I could live with that I didn't give up, or that I mean, yes, I could have enabled him. I definitely enabled him part of the way, because I was just there trying to fix it. But I think it helped me to help him, like it helped me if I knew that he was okay.
Yeah, you probably would have great level of anxiety if you didn't know that he
Constant.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's Diane and I have been through that with
Mhm.
our adult children, that you yeah, like, and people will tell you and people can tell you all the things they're going to tell you, but until you have experienced it and had it under your roof, like, thank you, but let me just right now, this is what I need to do to give me peace of mind of whatever I'm doing. And sometimes it looks like tough love, sometimes it looks
Yeah.
like, okay, one more time.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah,
get one chance.
that being said, I'm not saying tough love is wrong, because that works for some individuals and
No, we look,
family
yeah.
members, right? Like, it does work for some, but that wasn't like my personality. And so that's okay, right? So I had to do what I could live with myself, and
I
he
think
got,
I
so
think the most important thing, is that we have to do what we can do so we don't have regrets,
mhm,
you know?
Yeah.
And I think I sometimes look at things like that and I'll say, should I be doing this for my son or whoever? And I'll say,
mhm,
well, if I don't, I'm going to regret it if something happens.
mhm,
And so, Dawn, good for you for sticking to your guns and doing what you feel you needed to do so that you wouldn't have that regret. And I think that's just so important and a lesson for all of us to learn.
Yeah.
I
Now,
mean, I still have regrets, right? Like,
Well, we
there's
all,
things I wish I would have done.
of course, we all do, but what we've
Right.
learned from hearing from our guests is that even in different people that have, had healing and recovery in their substance use disorders or their
Mhm.
mental health issues, or they're stable now, it's it's so complex. There's not a one size fits all dose of medicine somebody can take that will heal the addiction or the mental health issue. Like, it's
Yeah.
very individualized. And so,
Yeah.
that is the same way as we're parenting, these loved ones, or loving, as we're loving these loved ones, we
Mhm.
want to love them well. And that looks like whatever it looks like, depending on what their situation is and where we're at, and what we what our bandwidth is, and what we can endure, and what will affect the rest of the household and all that stuff. So
Exactly.
I appreciate you sharing that.
so my son was homeless for a small while, and when he ended up working and not being homeless, he did help me pass out these backpacks for Dawn and Josh's heart. And my son always keeps something in his car, so if he sees a homeless person, that he can give to them. Like in the winter times, it could be gloves or something like that. But the one thing he will not be in his car without is some type of treat for the dog, because a lot of homeless people have animals and they don't have give their dogs anything. So it's just really sweet that you learn something. And I have to say that it was very eye-opening to be able to pass out backpacks for Josh's heart and hand these to people. And I think all of us here on the screen, we all look at people for who they are. We look in their eyes. We have experienced so many things in our lives that we don't set judgment for homeless people or anybody else. Uh, And I hope that most people will overcome any phobias that they might have, because these are people that just are trying to survive till tomorrow.
Mhm.
So Dawn and Dawn is doing something really phenomenal with Josh's heart. And
Yeah.
I just so wish I could be there on
Me
August
too.
12th. This is an amazing thing that two people have been able to do and orchestrate, because this is something we expect a large organization to do. So Dawn, can you tell us about this date and what you guys are doing? Because it is really impressive.
Well, thanks. It is a day of service for the homeless. We we call them our guests. And we have several resource partners coming out, but Sacramento Regional Transit, which is our bus and light rail station or organization in Sacramento, has given us a QR code, so our guests could ride the light rail for free to or the bus to the Homeless Connect. And since we're having it at a location where it's between 2 light rail stations and a bus hub, we actually have hired a paratransit to do a shuttle service from all that. So it's going to pick up at one light rail station, pick up the hub, pick up another light rail station, drop them off, and they're going to do that all day.
Okay, Dawn, can you start out by telling tell everybody what this event is called so that they
Sure. It's Josh's Hearts Homeless Connect. And the emphasis is on connect. We want to make sure that we connect with those our guests that come in.
It's on August 12th.
August 12th from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. But we will have DMV is going to be doing ID cards. We have Great Clips and Paul Mitchell doing haircuts. We have showers, new clothes. We have live bands. We have a mobile medical and dental and optical service that's coming in from Alhambra, California to set up just for this event. We have Alika Medical that's going to be there and doing the exams. We have,
Social Security.
Social Security, child support, Heart, which has a ton of services for the homeless.
Our church is going to do a
Rest Nest,
rest
which is
nest.
basically we're putting up tents with a backyard patio setting. And our guests are able to come in, just sit down and talk with someone from our church or a volunteer. So the idea basically is for our guests to come, get some services that they normally can't do during the week, all at one spot, get a shower, get some new clothes, have some food, sit down, listen to some live music, and be able to talk and just relax and enjoy themselves. And hopefully forget about, any troubles at that moment. Just be able to live in the moment, and then hopefully get some services to help them in the future. So
Did you say DMV?
I did. DMV. So yeah. So
and what's significant about that is, homeless people can't do a lot because they don't have identification. And so it's really significant that you were able to get the state involved in this to help do that. The fact that you got, people to give haircuts and do, washing a hair and cutting their hair and helping them feel better about who they are, new clothing. I mean, all of these things will help them feel better about themselves and maybe help lead some of these people who choose to be on the street, because there are people who choose to be on the street, decide, what, I'm ready to leave. I now can go forward. And I just think this program that you guys are doing is phenomenal. How long did it take you to put this together?
Well, my first call was to Healing California last June. And I was very fortunate to get on the books because they were already filling up for August. So that was our first start.
We also went to another function and went to booths and got
ideas from there.
contacts.
Yeah. So it was, God put it on my heart to start it back in June of last year. I told Dawn about it. I made a promise to her I have not kept yet. And I said that I'm going to form committees and get people to help with this. And I'm not going to let it take over. Unfortunately, I failed, and I'm sorry I did not live up to that. But everyone we spoke to, I went on this city tour with Sac State and got a lot of contacts through there. And everyone I spoke to at that point says, we want to be involved. I don't think there might have been only one person that said we can't do it. And it was because they didn't have, the timing wasn't right. But everyone we've gotten vendors to help us on costs. We've got the city has had a $50,000 grant we applied for and received. So that is helping with the cost of stuff. We've had business leaders and our supervisor and council members have chipped in money or services. So yeah, it's just been incredible. And then having it at Sac State, we partnered with President Emeritus Robert Nelson. That's weird to say that, Emeritus. He has been a champion of Josh's Heart since day one.
One of those things I was saying that boosted us out.
Yeah, he sent an email out. I sent an email out to some friends on campus CC'd him about donating to Josh's Heart.
In the
And he-
first couple months.
Yeah,
right?
within the first couple months. And he, the next day, sent it out to the whole campus. And I got a call from a friend of mine and said, hey, that's a wonderful email that the president wrote. And I'm saying, so I went back to my desk and I'm reading it and I'm just bawling. It was so heartfelt, and he and his wife Jody have just been incredible supporters of Josh's Heart. And one of the things that, I mean, I would love to have you guys talk to him. They lost their son to suicide. And so I think that's what has helped President Nelson be such a champion for young adults, and especially for our nonprofit. So the Homeless Connect is going to be at Sac State's Folsom Hall, which is 766 Folsom Boulevard, Sacramento 95826.
It's not on the campus,
Yeah.
it's on the.
It's one of our properties that's outside on Folsom
Do you
Boulevard.
want to tell them why it's August 12th?
I will in just a moment. And it's co-sponsored by the College of Health and Human Services, so they're helping us so much. But the reason why we chose August 12th, when I first spoke to Don, that was on our heart, we started looking at dates. And April 26th, which is Josh's birthday, was during the middle of the week. And then we're thinking, okay, what about his heavenly birthday? Well, that happens to be August 12th. So it's his seventh anniversary of him going home. So that's why we chose that day. I wish it was April because it's a lot cooler, but we're just praying for that cool wave to come in on that day. But I mean, we have 600 gallons of water from Running for Rat is donating their tanks for us to use. And we have 1,000 water bottles, refillable water bottles. And we'll have misters there to help keep people cool.
We'll have backpacks.
And we'll also have, I don't know if you know this or not, we're gonna have those little ice sticks.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Frozen ice sticks, popsicles.
Otter Pops.
Yeah, but they're squenchers.
So
So
they have
they're like Gatorade. but
electrolytes.
Yeah, electrolytes and stuff. It's all
Ooh,
about
very cool.
them vitamins. It's all about that. So
Yeah.
it's just been an interesting event trying to put this together ourselves. But again, I just feel that God's led us all the way through, and whatever happens, and it's going to be for the glory of God, and it's going to help those who need the help. Our guests are going to get, and I really think our volunteers and resource partners are going to get a lot out of this as well. So it's not just servicing those on the streets, but also our volunteers, helping them to realize that, they're people. And that's, I think, one of the great things. The second part of our nonprofit is our mission is to help people understand that the people out there are not just someone holding up a sign, but there's a story behind that, and not everyone's there because of alcohol, drug abuse. Can I tell them about Daniel? You want to tell
If
them
they have
about Daniel?
time. I
Do
don't
you have
know.
time for a quick story?
I
Yes.
can tell the story.
That's the beauty of a podcast. We could go as long as we need.
So once upon a time, so we when we first started, we had a lot of people just kind of, hey, helping us out. One of them was the owner of Blue Lamp, Gabby, can't remember her last name, but she wanted to put together a concert and to help the homeless. And so her friend who's 2 doors down the street from us, said, hey, there's this great organization. Our neighbor Don and Don started, Josh's Heart. So they did this benefit concert for us. And the next year we ended up taking it over and did that one, and then did one more year. And our third year, we had at the last moment this band called 3 Day Runner contact us and say, hey, we want to be part of this. And so they were from Chico. So they came in and they played
Paradise.
Chico in Paradise, yeah. So they came in, they played, and they packed up and went home. Cut to last December, we met this guy, or we came in the church, and someone said, oh, this guy wants to talk to you. And so we walk up to him, and so I'm Daniel Kavanaugh. I played in your concert. And so we're talking to him. My wife's sitting right next to him. She looks down and he has this black bracelet that one of our friends from the church makes and prays over.
We put them in our backpack.
Yeah, we put them in our backpacks. And so she's not really getting it. And he goes, yeah, I got it from my backpack.
After talking, I'm like, oh yeah, you were playing the band. Oh, that's awesome. I wasn't, but I didn't. And so I had to look at him and say, wait, did you get a backpack? And because he's from Paradise, he said, yeah, I did. I go, you got a backpack, not from me? Or from us? And he said, no, somebody else. And then I said, are you homeless out here? And he said, yeah, I am. So he went from donating his time for free for Josh's heart, and he loved the story. He watched the video, he cried his eyes out. He was so touched. He says he does a lot of mental health work where he was. They went home, and then the fire happened, and the whole band lost everything.
Oh my.
Oh,
But so he saw our tag. He saw the tag on our backpack, and she's gonna step out for
I'm
a
just
quick
gonna
moment.
step out real quick.
Saw the tag on the backpack and said, I know this organization. I played for them. And so a couple people, there's a couple from our church that when we go out and deliver, they always take a few backpacks because they see people on the streets where they go. And that's kind of one of the things that we do too, is not all of our backpacks are distributed that day. People grab them, take them to the areas of where they know. So kind of going back to everything's by the grace of God that we're able to do everything that we do.
that's amazing. I mean, we just don't know. We just
Yeah.
don't know what, somebody's story is. And the only way you can learn that is when they're willing to be open and share and be vulnerable. And that begins with you first treating them like a human being.
Right. And that vulnerability is hard, especially because I'm sure that when you're on the streets, you build up a wall, right?
Oh, yeah.
To people around you, because you gotta show your strength, and or trust is another issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could not imagine. So kind of going backwards a little bit, one of the reasons how I got involved in homeless was there was a book by a New York Times writer and a photographer, Sacramento Bee. It was called The Last Great American Hobo. And so I saw that book and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I really want to learn more about the homeless. And in 2009, Donna and I, wow, we went out of focus, babe.
Yeah, we're blurry.
That's because, we're just soft focus. It's glamour. I don't know what happened.
Can you see
Here.
that?
We
That's
don't
okay.
see you, but it's okay.
well.
We can hear you good.
Our faces may be blurry, but we're sharp on tack. So we tried to do another nonprofit called Snapshot Sacramento. I don't know if you remember that day.
I do.
We wanted
Calendars.
to do calendars of people's photographs around Sacramento, sell it, and then the proceeds go to the homeless. That may come back, who knows? We'll see what happens. But we just didn't have the timing right, and or the skills or anything that we needed. But this really was God ordained, and the other one was Dawn ordained.
So what I'm hearing tonight on this podcast is a few things that maybe our listeners can take away with them. One of them is, once we move through grief, we're able to, do more in the memory of the one that we love. And I think that's really important to realize is we will get past grief. It will never go away. We will live with it differently. But we will be able to honor those that we love. And a lot of that has to do with our tribe, right? Dawn, you were talking about your employer, the president of the school there, and what he did, my family and all of the other people that have been able to support you. And I think it's really important for people to realize you're not in this alone. If you just share your story, your tribe is going to be there to support you, even if you don't ask for help, because you didn't ask for help, and yet all these people came through for you. So for those of you that are listening to this podcast and you have thought to yourself, I would like to start an organization, a nonprofit, or I want to start a music, evening in the park so that it benefits, some particular group. It can happen. It can. Just ask people, ask questions. Somebody's going to have those answers for you. Dawn, would you like to add anything to that?
Which Dawn?
Either
Me?
one. Yes.
Yeah, I think that leaning into your tribe, one of the things that we found that, or at least I found, the more we talked about it, I think it helped because we weren't keeping our story in. And I think that's the thing, is like, it's like when you're angry or you're sad or whatever. I mean, if you keep that emotion buried up, buried inside, you're never going to heal. You're just gonna, that's gonna fester in one way or another. And so being able to talk to people and find people that want to listen. Okay, there are people out there that are like, will sit there and say, that I've heard that already, I'm done. Can we move on to something else? Those are the people that are not there to support you, I feel. There's people out there that will, and they'll listen to your story. And you may tell that story 16, 17 times in a week, but at least this way, if you need to be able to do that and feel a safe place to be able to have it. And so that's where you hope that your tribe really has your back on that.
We don't have, we still are a very small nonprofit. We don't have a ton of followers, or quite yet. But I would say with the Homeless Connect, Dawn has made so many contacts by doing just that, by going and talking and asking questions and reaching out for vendors and all kinds, resource partners and all the things. He's nonstop doing that work. And I think maybe we might be getting more people who have heard of us now.
Well, I want to thank you for channeling your sorrow, your pain, and your love for your son into something that is going to benefit and bless so many other homeless. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Leslie,
thank you.
I'm going to wrap this one up.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But yeah, I want to thank you for that. We're going to put your website, link to your website in our show notes so people can check it out. I'm tempted. I was looking at my calendar while you were talking to see what I'm doing that day to just fly on up and be part of it. I want to thank you for your vulnerability, and I want to thank you for telling us to share our story. And I think Diane and I both found healing in that with what we went through with our own children, and we didn't realize how prevalent some of these issues were once we started talking to other people. Oh, well, my brother or my sister, or my kid is dealing with mental health stuff too, or substance use disorder, or whatever. So yeah, just thank you so much for sharing with us here. And I always say, if there's just one person that this encourages and blesses, then this 1 hour or so that we've spent with you is well worth our time and then some. So I want to thank you guys for being with us. We will go ahead and wrap up this episode as we do always, saying first, be kind to yourself, give yourself some grace, cut yourself some slack, and be able to go out into your community and be kind to others. And remember to sprinkle it everywhere like glitter. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.